So Linda, I can't share my screen because it says the host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay. Is it okay if they just look at their?
Yeah, it's fine if that's what you guys would prefer to do. I mean, whichever way works best.
Okay. I did not click recording, but I hovered over it and now I have a thing that says I can pause recording or stop recording. So I'm recording, right? We're recording. Take it away, Jama.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I would so much rather be there with you than where I'm at today, but thanks for your patience in this process. It's been quite a morning. Last night started to feel not so great and thought maybe I could do this morning. I woke up this morning and just realized I couldn't. And so anyway, I'm just grateful to be here, and I wish I was actually seeing your faces. But I will take this for the time that I can be with you today. So let's pray together as we get started and just ask God's blessing over our day and also for your breakfast. So, Lord Jesus, we're so thankful that you are a God who knows things that we don't even know is coming. And as we just talked about last week, God, you're just not surprised. You are aware of everything and just aware of every specific detail in our life. And we're so grateful for that. And we're so thankful, Lord, that you care about those details. And you're more aware of details in our lives than we're even aware. And so I'm so thankful for that. And just pray for this morning, God, that as we just kind of talk through this, and it's a little bit different morning with slides in front of them on papers instead of on a screen and all those things, but we know that doesn't really matter. What really matters, God, is just that we're listening to you and we're hearing you. And so we just pray for that today. I pray that the words spoken will be only words from you, and God, the things that you want shared, and I'm just removed from the equation totally. And the Lord, you just work in each of our lives the way you want to. And thank you for the meal that these amazing ladies have today. And I just pray you'll nourish their bodies and give them strength for the day ahead. In your name, amen. So, and last week when we were talking about, and I had made the comment that this didn't take God by surprise. So the reality of it was, this morning, the slides were already fully printed for you. And that was the plan before I put in a sick call, so to speak. So I think that was another space in there where God was just so aware that what was coming and he was preparing all of us for this. So I'm so thankful for that. And so I'm going to jump in this week and talk about kind of more family oriented and with children when the abnormal is normal and finding our hope in COVID. And, you know, there's so many things that have changed what our normal was. And, you know, our normal, we would say, has now gone to sometimes masks outside and hand sanitizers just on a routine basis, and sanitizers everywhere in stores and different things like that. So it's very different than it was before. Yeah, it's our new reality. And so we don't know as well what a new normal is even going to look like. So one of the things that we want to really be focused in is how do we remain authentic amidst COVID-19. Now, for me today, it kind of would have been nice to just be there and muscle my way through not feeling well. But then as I even just pulled this up right now, I'm like, and that wouldn't really have been on the authentic side of things. And so, you know, there's spaces in there where in our efforts to be authentic, sometimes we make decisions, but we're also all trying to figure out what's normal and how do we define what normal is for us right now in our new normal, and our new normal in our families, and our new normal maybe if you have kids in school and what that looks like. But I want to focus this in first on some scripture and going into Matthew and really looking at what we are called to do. You know, sometimes we can get focused on what we maybe think we shouldn't do, but when it really comes down to it, Jesus gave us two commandments. And as we're thinking about what our normal is and how we readjust that and how we do things with our kids, just wanted to start this morning in Matthew chapter 22. verses 37 to 39. I know you have that there in front of you. It says, Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based upon these two commandments." Jesus took everything that he was asking and pulled it into these two commandments. And if we look back in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, we can see where these same two commandments are basically placed there. And he brought them into New Testament day when he was talking with the religious leaders who were really trying to trick him and see what they could get from him and if they could question him on a way that he wouldn't be able to respond. But as parents, we can easily be thinking about things that maybe we didn't do well, or things we wish we would have done, or different spaces in our lives maybe that don't go well, or we focus on what we shouldn't be doing. And I just want to try and change our trajectory and move us to thinking about what it is that we need to be doing. What is God calling us to do? He's calling us to love him with every ounce of our being, our heart, our soul, and all of our mind. We notice the word all there. It's not some of it, it's all of us. And then loving our neighbor as ourselves. I mean, those two spaces are what can we do for other people? So as you're thinking about what we talked about today, think about that with even your family and your children. So I want to go in and look at a concept Brene Brown talked about, which was comparative suffering. And so I'm really going to kind of start with just a really straightforward, let's stop comparing ourselves to other people. We've all done it. We're all guilty of it. And it's one of those things that really leads us into a sense of shame, which shame is that feeling of, I can't be good enough. I'm not enough. I'll never be enough for whomever it is around me or what is required of me. No one benefits from this, including those who are the most wounded. And sometimes we will see people while they're looking and they'll say something like, get over it, you're fine, get over it, it's not that big a deal. And really what those kind of sayings do is creates a deeper emotional wound, and it shuts down that individual, decreases our trust, and then their chance of them being transparent with us in the future decreases. So when we think about and I would say realistically, sometimes when you have children, that thought may go through your head. We don't want to let it come out of our mouth, because the reality is we as adults have to maintain perspective in the midst of all this. We may have some complaints. We may verbalize those from time to time. We are going to have feelings, but our child's perspective is so much more limited. And they depend on us for that path through this. And they depend on us not to compare to other families or other people, because if we're verbalizing that, or ladies, if we're doing that with ourselves and we're verbalizing that, our kids are going to pick up on that. They're going to hear us, they're going to see us. And one of the things we want to remember is they observe so much more than they're even going to verbalize, and they pick up on things. So, our piece in here of maintaining perspective is so important. I also want to encourage you as moms to exercise some self compassion and not self pity. This is hard right now. It is hard. We need to acknowledge our grief, our fears, our uncertainties, those vulnerabilities we have. We need to be authentic, like we talked about a minute ago in this space. It's okay for us not to have all the answers all the time. As a mom, you're never going to have all the answers all the time. And so, one of the best things you can do is just recognize that and accept that at this point. And we're not our best self every day, and especially in some stressful times, and just extending ourselves some grace in that. And as I go through this, I'm like, and that's probably pretty much where I'm at this morning personally, is I've got to extend myself the grace of not being able to do something that my heart really wanted to do. We're not our best self every day, and sometimes we have to step back. Sometimes in the midst of something, we're going to respond in a way we wish we wouldn't have. And we need to extend ourselves the grace and then do the repair work relationally. But we need to understand we have to exercise some self compassion in there. Let's not feel sorry for ourselves in the midst of this. Let's not pity ourselves, but let's be compassionate and care for ourselves, because as we do that, it makes a significant difference for our kids. Kind of in this space of COVID, there's this um, almost this panic or there's a calm. People kind of take these two different places, and you guys may have been at one of these two places more than one time. When we look at, and panic is kind of the extreme in there, but if we look at some anxiety, and I know you guys have heard anxiety mentioned quite a bit around grace. I mean, we definitely have talked about that, just the reality that it's there and it's in our culture. So I want to just kind of give some ideas on how to recognize this, how to recognize this in yourself and in your family. Because what I find sometimes is people will talk about anxiety and they kind of have a broad understanding, but not necessarily one that helps them really put some feet to it. One of the things we want to recognize is that anxiety can be a pattern that's learned in families. In a sense that we kind of call it being contagious. Functions in groups. If one person becomes anxious and there's a group, most everyone's anxiety in that group is going to go up. But anxiety is really rooted in fear. And so I know in my office and when I'm working with people, I want to get into what is the root of this? What is at the core of the anxiety? Because anxiety can really be debilitating. But we want to recognize that as moms, if we are showing that we are anxious, our kids are going to pick up on that. So my concern there for you would be if you are feeling a heightened sense of that, find that person that you're able to talk through, whether that be a mentor, whether that be a counselor, whether that be a close friend. Find that person who can help you. But if it is a situation where it feels debilitating to you, then I would say work on finding a counselor that can really help you get to the core of what that is, because life does not have to be that way. But if we're going to recognize it in ourself and our family, I'm going to just give you some ways it can manifest itself. This doesn't mean if you are experiencing these things that, oh, well, that's definitely you have anxiety there, but it could manifest itself this way. So we want to make sure that we're clear in that. We're not saying it definitely is, but we say it can. Some of those can be memory issues, difficulty sleeping, a rapid heartbeat is a sign of anxiety. If that's continual trouble breathing, constant worry, maybe procrastination. Sometimes procrastination can step in with perfectionism, and there's a lot of anxiety that can be there for perfectionists because they feel like if they don't do it just perfect, it's not going to be good enough, and so they will procrastinate rather than jump in and do something. Could be continual headaches, sweating, avoidance of people, of task responsibilities. Overthinking can be a sign of anxiety, and overthinking can be paralyzing for people and keeps them from moving forward in making decisions. When I say stomach issues, if you notice your kids saying they have tummy aches and they have tummy aches a lot, and maybe they're saying that before they go to school or they're getting ready to do something, just be aware that that potentially could be some anxiety for them and not necessarily just an upset stomach, but that could be an anxiousness that is there. And so we want to start to learn vocabulary, and we'll talk about that to help our kids put some of that into words. Also, if there's a continual need for reassurance, if there would be a panic attack at some point, or if there's a real decrease in patience or difficulty concentrating, all of these things can be part of anxiety. Now, one in and of themselves, again, is not going to necessarily say that's definitely anxiety. But if you're noticing a pattern of some of these, you're going to want to just discern whether or not this is anxiety. If we go to calm, on the other hand, calm is basically the antidote for anxiety, and this is also contagious. And if we're with someone who is feeling more anxious, one of the things that we could do is help them take the deep breaths. And we talked a little bit about that last week. But, really a good way, and even to start doing this is practicing it when you don't need it. And I've oftentimes recommended to people, they just teach their kids how to do this, because this could be a really great way to step back, self soothe, learn to regulate emotions. If we as adults and parents can't regulate our own emotions, then we're going to have a really hard time teaching our children to regulate their emotions. And the same with identifying emotions. But one of the ways to maintain a sense of calm for yourself and allow your brain to clear as well is to take slow, deep breaths. And that's just being methodical in our practice, taking maybe inhaling through your nose to the count of 3, 4, or 5, and then exhaling through your mouth to the count of 3, 4, and 5. And do that 4 or 5 times. It's amazing when we do that how we slow down. And one of the pieces that we teach people when they maybe have panic attacks is if we can catch that really early and they can start these slow, deep breaths, oftentimes we can avoid that because we have kept our heart at a slow pace. And so everything else in our body isn't going to speed up if we can keep our heart and our breathing slow. Another thing with anxiety is oftentimes people will start to talk sometimes at a more rapid pace. And even maybe their voice tone may get louder if they're overly anxious, and whereas some people will get really quiet. You're going to kind of have those two extremes. But what we want to do is not mirror the person that's talking louder and more rapid. We want to talk softer and at a lower, slower pace. And this brings a more relaxing pace into the environment, which then is not mirroring their anxiety, but it's actually doing just the opposite. And so, what we hope then is that they start to pick up and mirror what they're receiving. We want to give them what we want to receive. So, you're reflecting back to them what you want to see in them. You're using a voice tone and the pace of words that you want back from them. And this is all based on science as well, because we have mirror neurons that help us match other people when we're in conversation. So you see somebody who maybe smiles, and then you maybe smile, and that's part of your mirror neurons that are actually working. But remaining calm is much better than trying to tell someone to calm down. And you may have had that experience at some time in your life where this oftentimes could be a husband wife thing where sometimes males will want to say, well, you just need to calm down. And my response to that typically is like, that's like the last thing that really needs to be said. Because what that person needs is a really calm person to come alongside them. So we want to give people what we desire from them. So with your kids, you want to give them a sense of calm, because that's what you're desiring from them. Now, it doesn't mean they never have a moment where they're not calm, but if they are having a time where they're maybe more escalated or more anxious, because there's a difference between having this occasional period of being anxious and having full blown, what we would say, diagnosable anxiety. There's a difference in there. But if they have those occasional periods of being anxious, we want to mirror to them what it's like to be calm and how do we work through these times where we're emotionally regulating, but we're connecting in with what's happening with us. So, one of the things that you can do if someone and your kids or yourself, so both of these really apply to both, are having some trouble just with some anxiety and really kind of slowing it down, is step in. And this is basically a mindfulness technique, is what we use, but it helps us to ground ourselves. And so we're asking them for 5 things that they can see. So if someone's really anxious, you're just going to come alongside and say, name for me right now 5 things that you can see. And they'll name 5 things that they can see. Like right now in my office, I can see books and headphones and a water bottle and my phone and my Bible. So there's 5 things that I see. And then 4 things that you can touch. And they'll touch 4 different things and repeat that back. 3 different things that they can hear. Sometimes we think, I wouldn't be hearing 3 different things, but we may hear a fan on our computer, a car outside, music in the background. What are two things that we smell? And it's what's the taste that's in our mouth. That what that does is brings that person out of that space of anxiety, which takes them into the future, back to present and what is happening right now. So it's just a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it's a way and something you can teach your kids as well, to where they can practice that. And in some ways, I say it can almost become a game of sorts, that they get used to playing that and they get used to talking about this. So when they need it, when they're struggling, they can come back and know what 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 means for them. Because what we want to do is create a space of emotional safety for our kids. And right now, for kids in COVID, for adolescents in COVID, it hasn't felt like so much a place of safety. But as we stay calm, as we take charge, I hope you are, if you have children old enough, but any child really with media at any level, what they're seeing, what they're hearing, give them explanations in calm, age appropriate manners, enough to inform them, but not overwhelm them. I'm like, what is, I used to ask myself with my kids, what's the maximum that I need to tell them to where they have what they need at an age appropriate place, but it's not too much that would be a space that would overwhelm them or take them maybe into the next question. So sometimes I would feel like, and maybe I'm stopping a little bit short, but if they asked me another question, I would answer the next question. So I was really clear not to try to read into the question they were asking, but only answer the question that they were asking. The other thing we want to help our kids do is help them express their feelings with not making them take care of your feelings. We need to own our own feelings, and our kids are not our caretakers of our feelings, and they're not responsible for that. And this is something that can happen really easily when things get turned. So we want to make sure that we own our feelings and we teach our kids to own their feelings and how to deal with them. We also want to provide our kids a sense of place that they can regain some control. And maybe that's over helping with dinner or picking dinner, what's for dinner, play what game we're going to play as a family, maybe what outing that we're going to choose. And that could mean you're going to choose 4 or 5 different options and give them those options, but ultimately they get to make a choice. Because right now, when it feels like in some ways things are outside of our control, like just how long are we going to wear these masks? How long is some of this shutdown in different ways going to occur? How when we reopen, what does this look like? Or why can't I play soccer with my friends in this way? Or why can't I just have a play date in a way that feels more normal to me? We want to give them opportunities to regain a sense of control and provide that assurance and support that you're there. What they really want to know is that you're there and you're going to take care of them. And then you want to be a good role model for handling conflict for them. So you want to model also how to recover from a difficult situation. When you're facing something that's hard, you want to model how to come back from that. And I would say probably in my family, there's times we did that really well. There's probably times that we could have improved on that for sure. We went through some really difficult spaces in our life, and that's one of those spaces in there what I was talking about, answer your kids' questions to the place that they only need that information. That would be some of those spaces we would give our kids only what they needed to know, not all of the details. But we had to model how to recover from a difficult situation. Avoid topics that can lead to worry. Find other ways to bring input in rather than something that's going to elevate their anxiety, but encourage them to talk to you and give them assurance of your help. That may mean I don't have all the answers right now as your mom, but I'm going to help you. If your child is more clingy than usual, this could be a sign of worry or anxiety. So we want to be monitoring that. I've recognized there's spaces in life, and some of this is developmental. We go through developmental stages that certain ages kids are going to be a little more clingy than other. So it's not that I'm talking about. It would be a different that you would know as mom, and you're a mom and you know this, that something is different for my child here. that could be a sign of some anxiousness and worry. Also encourage you just to schedule some intentional task-free time together where you really don't have anything planned. It's just time together, and let that just unfold as it can. That may end up being a long walk together. It may end up being just sitting and having a conversation or talking or laughing or playing a game. But make it something that's not necessarily scheduled for a task. So we're not cleaning, we're not picking up toys, we're not doing that type of thing, but we're just going to be together. Set routines and structure. If you guys have ever heard me talk before, I know I'm a big person for routine and structure because it does give us space in there where that's safe for our kids. So if the other things seem out of control, routine and structure gives them a sense of safety. And then just encourage some re-engagement with activities as you see fit, as it feels comfortable for you. And these are hard decisions that everyone's making right now, but doing your best to encourage that. You may have seen a picture similar to this somewhere before where there's been different pictures of emotions and awareness. So my story with this was I picked one of these up one time when I was at a counseling conference, and mine had a little square on it with the square was cut out, and the top of it said today, and the bottom said I feel. And so in the middle of that open square, that square could be moved over a face. And so I just brought it home, hung it on my refrigerator, didn't think too much about it. And then I started noticing that when my own kids would come in back in from school at times, they would move that magnet over a face. Didn't say a lot maybe about that, or sometimes they would say something and move it, but oftentimes I'd see them go to the refrigerator to get a drink or get a snack, and they'd stop. And not every day, but some days they would stop and pause, and one of them would move it, and I would just be standing back there kind of going, I wonder what they just moved that to. And I wouldn't comment on it at that point. I just would let them get their snack or whatever, and I would wait and I would look at it later. And then I literally would try to find a strategic way to have a conversation to see if we could talk more about what was there. Sometimes it was just straight out, hey, I saw that. You moved that there. Tell me about your day. Tell me about what happened. Other times you could sense maybe that wasn't the best approach, but it's also something that you can use to teach your kids just feeling words and emotion words, because a lot of times kids don't have that vocabulary. I mean, and unless you as a parent are good at using feeling words, then your children aren't necessarily going to pick that up. So I encourage you to start thinking about how am I talking with them? And am I talking outside of words like happy, mad, sad, glad, angry, or anxious? Those are feelings that we are typical to say. But, do we say that we're excited or that we're frustrated or we're embarrassed or we're hurt? Um, do we say that we're surprised? Do we say we're silly? Do we use those kinds of words? What is our word? And just expanding that vocabulary out with your kids, especially this time in COVID, is a great time to really be focusing in on that, because we have all had a gamut of emotions with this. So I want to give you just some family friendly reminders. If you notice there's some increased irritability or even some anger, and anger really is a result of some other unresolved emotions. But if you notice that, I want maybe just to give you some things that I would imagine you've already thought about, but just kind of to touch on them real quick. If you have school age kids, there's some frustration in not being able to see their friends. If you have younger kids, there would be maybe some frustration and just some changes that have been made in their own routines. Maybe there's any age of a child could be tired of the changes and limitations that have been there. They can feel anxious and unhappy with the feelings they're having just about all of that. But whenever a child shares with you, or even a family member, thank them for sharing what they shared with you, and discuss how their sharing can help alleviate the intensity of the feelings. So often people will think if I talk about things, it's going to get worse, when actually it's the opposite. If we talk about things, especially hard things, it actually takes the power away from that hard piece internally that is there and brings us a sense of relief because we're actually sharing that. And I just go back over and over to that sense of biblical community that God intended for us, that that's the way that he made us, to be in community with people. So he did not make us to internalize everything. He wanted us to be in that community. We also want to remind children that they're not alone in how they feel, and just help them re-engage with routines and some predictability for them. Another piece is just ensure your unconditional love for them, that they don't have any question of that they're safe, that they're secure, some playtime and interaction with other kids, offer them support and encouragement, do the things you do as a parent, giving appropriate guidance and discipline. Make some time to truly listen to them and their experiences and their challenges. This is one of those pieces that sometimes can be really easy to think we're really listening, but we're not really listening. Did we really set things down and where we look them in the eye? And did we really listen to what they're saying to us? Make that time to truly listen and give them, I call it the gift of age appropriate responsibilities. We gift our children when we teach them things to be responsible for, and we help them to become independent and responsible. That's a gift for them, and that actually kind of starts at birth. And day one, our one of our roles as parents is to teach them to become responsible and independent adults. So giving them age appropriate responsibility is important. And then think about family traditions. How have those changed during COVID? What are some new things that maybe you're doing that you weren't doing? At my house with my husband and I, since our kids are grown right now, we actually stepped in, and every Saturday morning, I started out with this really great plan. I was going to make these awesome omelets, and it only took about the first or second Saturday in, and I'm like, okay, scrap the awesome omelet plan, and we're going to have some really great scramblers, because I don't do omelets well. I can't get that to look right and flip those over like that. So that became our Saturday morning, a long 3, 4, 5 mile walk, and then coming back in, and we would have that together. And so, and sometimes kids, grandkids would join. But those times that kind of became a new space for us that we would do on the weekend. But what is something new maybe you started? Did you start playing games together more? Was there something maybe you picked up, something that you just even enjoy watching for a few minutes a day together or something? What is it that for your family is a tradition? Um, Again, coming back to that responsible use of technology for yourselves, gift your family with times that you're off of social media and you're putting your phone down and staying away from tech things. Gift yourself, your family, and teach everyone to do that. Play together, laugh together, encourage learning. Exercise and nutrition is always important because that does impact how we feel. It impacts how we connect with other people, impacts our sleep, and then just get out and enjoy nature and walking and exploring. And we've changed seasons here from in COVID. We're kind of heading into our third season, as we started in kind of late winter into early spring, and we went through summer, and now we're into fall. This is still around us and still happening, but really, get out and enjoy some of the fall weather that we have, and recognize how that impacts your family's emotional well-being when we're outside and we're just enjoying some of that space together. Even if you're not an outdoor lover, it's still good to get out. And maybe a goal would be to go out and play in the leaves with your kids, or something that is different that maybe you don't do every year, or something. Maybe consider, or teaching your young kids, really young ones, how much fun it can be to jump in a pile of leaves and just laugh together and do that. So I'm going to share with you, you have a list, it says Happy Moms. So this really actually is coming out of a book that is not yet published. Some colleagues and I actually wrote a book over the last year, and it's actually coming out, will be published this fall. And this comes out of the chapter on motherhood. And so I'm going to share theirs, and then I'm going to end with just a different perspective here as well to add in. But each of these women are basically where you guys are at. Two of them have very, very young kids. One of them has kids that are more in high school. So kind of in those different phases. But they gave some pointers in their chapter that I thought were just great pieces, and I wanted to share with you today. But it's really happy moms learn how to let go. You realize you did your best. And if you remember, we talked about every day we're not at our best, but you did your best. You understand there's a lot of factors outside of your control. Happy moms don't have to be attached to outcomes. You can't make your children perfect, or you can't make them happy. Don't be attached to those outcomes there. Just love your kids for who they are and put your best foot into it every day. Happy moms set boundaries over which children or even others who might guilt you can't cross. You set some clear guidelines and boundaries, and you expect to be treated with respect from your children and from other people. This is important. This is part of what we are to teach our children. And then happy moms allow others to help out and don't have to do it all. They realize that others love your kids and are willing to step in when you're tired or you need a break. And I want to say this for just that I'm tired, I need a break, but also for our kids' spiritual development. If we get into sticky faith research, our kids need 5 adults around them that are strong Christian believers to help them in their faith journey through their life. So I encourage you to be thinking about, who are those 5 adults for my kids? Who do I want them to be that I'm going to intentionally ensure that they're connecting in with, so they can be strong spiritual mentors to my children? And happy moms pursue some personal interest and maintain a balanced life. So it's okay to have a hobby, to go out with friends, do things like you're doing right now. I mean, this is important. And then happy moms have a tribe. Happy moms have people like at Real Moms, with whom they feel authentic, validated, and armed for what they have to do. I loved they included happy moms have a tribe, because I think that takes us back to that sense of community that God wants us to have, and what He asked us for and what He planned for when He created man and woman. So I'm going to finish up and just kind of take you into Philippians. And I want to read this from the message today, as we just look at what do we do. And I always say it's easier to say don't fret or worry sometimes than what it is to actually do that. But I think if we can really hone in and work to follow God's plan in this, it will lighten that. And as we talk about the things that concern us, as we look at what this says in Philippians 4:6-7, it says, don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. And before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. When we come back and finish back in Matthew, where we look at what we do, what are the 2 things that we focus on that we do? Loving God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. As I tend to say, keeping the main things the main things. And as we focus on what we can do, loving God with all our heart, soul, and our mind, these other things will flow out of that. I truly believe that's why Jesus said that's the first and the greatest commandment, because I think even loving our neighbor as ourselves flows out of loving God with all of our heart, all of our soul, and all of our mind. Because in the midst of this pandemic, it will end. It will come to an end. And COVID didn't take God by surprise. The fact that we're all on video today didn't take God by surprise. The things that your family may be dealing with didn't take God by surprise. But yet there's ways that we walk in and through them, and with God's help, knowing that He can strengthen us. So let's pray together as we finish. God, we we're so grateful for your love. And I know there's a lot of information that we pulled through today. And so, Lord, I pray that as I just talk in groups and take this home and maybe read over even the papers that they have, God, that something will stick for them, and that what you want each of us to take away, Lord, today we will take away, and that we will be better mothers, we will be better friends, we will be better wives, we will just be better followers of you, God, which is the ultimate goal in our life. So lead us, God, where you want us to go, and help us to be good listeners to you, God, and to those around us and our family and our children. And may we love you and love them well. In your name, amen.
All right, Jama, this is Amy. Linda's left the room, so I just wanted to thank you. And if you guys could, she can't see, so could you shout thank you so she knows that you were listening?
Oh, you're fine, guys. I miss you. I wish I was there, but I know I needed to be here today. So thanks for your patience and your graciousness.
Well, thank you, Jama. Hope you get feeling well.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Maybe it already stopped recording. Nope, hold on.